Hola, this is Jordan coming at you with the bonus video for how prepositions work. So this goes with the Spanish Quickie, how prepositions work. In this video, we're going to go through this El País article. El País is a Spanish newspaper, like it's from Spain, it's actually Spanish. And we're going to go through it using the puzzle strategy. If you don't know what the puzzle strategy is, look up the video called the puzzle strategy, and I made a couple bonus videos that go really in depth how to use it. But in this video, we're going to use kind of an adapted or short form puzzle strategy where instead of looking at everything, basically the puzzle strategy helps you to go through something in written Spanish and translate it or decode it. And the reason I call it the puzzle strategy is because the closer you are to the beginning, the harder it is and the less you know, so you really have to like totally decode it. So it really is like putting together a puzzle, a complicated puzzle. But what we're going to do in this video is just focus on the prepositions. Now, to understand the prepositions, you need to understand their context, and to understand the context, you need to understand what's going on basically. So we're going to go through every word, but I'm not going to look up all these words. I'm not going to look up any conjugations. I'm not going to explain much. We're just looking really specifically actually for prepositions and how they're the same as what we do in English or the same as what I said they mean on the word list. So once you figure out the definitions on the word list of the 22 words and you know those are the definitions, then it works like that 80 to 90% of the time, just like English. Now it's hard to go through it on the actual webpage here on El País, so I copied the text into Google Documents and I highlighted every preposition so I don't miss any. We're just going to go through this word by word and sentence by sentence. I'll concentrate on a little part, and sometimes it'll get a little confusing because we'll lose track of the context, but we're going through all the words and I'm figuring it out on my own, to be honest with you, because this still takes a little bit of work for me. And then I'll go over an entire paragraph at the end to give you the real context. Okay, starting with the main headline here. El impeachment de Dilma, the impeachment of Dilma. And the fact that it's put in quotes here leads me to believe that maybe they don't usually use that word and they're using it as an English word. It seems like an English word being used, but who knows. El impeachment de Dilma, the impeachment of Dilma. And Dilma is the first name of the current president of Brazil. So Dilma Rousseff is the current president. But the important thing here is de is being used as of, which is exactly what I said it was on the word list. I told you that de means of or from, and now it's being used exactly that way. So it's being used, once you know the definition, it's being used just like we use it in English. The impeachment of Dilma. Entre la primacia de la ley y la voluntad popular. Entre means between, straight from the word list. The primacy of the law, de is being used as of again, the law, y and the popular voluntariness. So what that means is the popular will of the people, basically. So the whole thing now, the impeachment of Dilma between the primacy of the law and the popular will. The supremacy of the law is probably a better way to say that. But the main point right now is de, entre, and de are all being used exactly like the word list says and exactly how we use them in English. Of, between, and of. Moving on to the subheadline here, un nuevo normal latinoamericano. That just says a new normal Latin American. So a new Latin American normal, nadie está por encima de la ley. That says nobody is above the law. Now this is basically, I told you in the video how prepositions work, and it's on the word list. Encima de means on top or on top of. But also in the video I showed you how there's a lot of overlap between encima de and other words like sobre and en, so they can be used as on and over and stuff like that. In this case, por is obviously going to get a red mark because that's not from the word list and it's a special word obviously. But por encima de is just a specific phrase that you need to memorize, means above. So encima de by itself, I told you means on top and on top of, but por encima de means more above. Now, if you didn't know that, and that's just something you have to memorize, but if you didn't know that and you just read nadie está encima de la ley, nobody is on top of the law is what you would have read, and that would have given you the same picture in your head. So por is almost not needed here, but you'll see it a lot. Por encima de is pretty common. So por encima de, just memorize, means above. Encima de means on top or on top of. But of course, I marked por as red because we wouldn't have gotten it straight from the word list. Moving on, ni los ungidos por la voluntad popular. Now, ni can mean a lot of things. It could mean neither. We'll see what it means in the context. Los ungidos. Ungidos, I do not know that word. Ungidos is rub on, apply, anoint. It's to anoint is the verb, and this is the past participle, so it's anointeds. The anointed ones. Ni los ungidos por la voluntad popular. So, ni los ungidos basically means not even the anointed ones. Por, in this case, I'm just going to tell you, but I'm not going to explain it, because I'm going to explain it in the next video, is by. So it kind of like shows authorship in a way, or I don't know, we'll talk about it in the next video. So it just means by, B-Y, the popular will. So we saw this before up here in the main headline. So the whole thing together now, a new Latin American normal. Nobody is above the law, not even the anointed ones by popular will. Not the best translation, but you get the picture. And that's the point, is translating officially, like being a translator is a whole nother job than just understanding Spanish and being able to speak it. Because when you speak it, you choose the words and the way to say something, but there's many ways to say something. And when you hear all those different ways, all you have to do is picture the essence of what the person is saying. But when you're translating, you really need to think of a good way to say it in English, because they don't speak caveman. But the main focus again is the prepositions from the word list, and encima de, without the por, even without understanding the por, if you would have just said for on top of the law, you would have gotten the picture, I think. And then here probably would have, maybe with the context, maybe you would have understood it, maybe not. Moving on to the first paragraph. En los últimos días, in recent days, and en is just being used as in, últimos is recent. Los medios de comunicación globales, the mediums, the different mediums of global communications, and de is being used as mediums is TV, newspaper, the focus of everything. Han destacado la culminación política. Let's start with this. Han destacado, destacar is to focus. So have focus. This is like, I think this is called the perfect. So an, we saw it in the last video with like a and I think. This is han destacado, have focused. We're talking about the global communications. La culminación política, the culmination, the political culmination. Del is of the, it's a contraction. De is on the word list as of or from, and then del is a contraction, and I made a video about that. Look it up, contractions. Proceso de impedimento, process of stoppage, impedimento, that's like a stoppage, de, of la presidenta Dilma Rousseff, of the president Dilma Rousseff. Now, impediment here might be just a word they use for impeachment, and maybe that's the real word they use for impeachment, because an impeachment is a stoppage. They're using impeachment up here in quotes in the main headline, remember, and maybe that's why, because they're kind of using like the English word in the headline, but now they're using the proper Spanish word. I don't know, I don't think I've ever read the word impeachment in Spanish before. Let's see what it says. Impediment, hindrance, impediment, hindrance, impediment. It doesn't list here impeachment. I'm guessing right now, but it doesn't matter. The stoppage of the president of Dilma Rousseff. So in recent days, the mediums, all the methods, all the things of global communication have focused on the political culmination of the impeachment process of President Dilma Rousseff. And all those are being used as just textbook in the mediums of communication, the culmination, the political culmination of the process of impeachment of the president. Okay, continuing on. Con raras excepciones, with rare exceptions, again, just the same. Las reacciones de los organismos multilaterales. That's kind of hard to say. The reactions of the multilateral organizations, I think that means of like the EU and the UN and the World Bank or whatever. Y de la prensa internacional, and of the international press, se han dividido entre desinformadas. They have divided between, entre. So de back here, I don't think I said this, and de over here, both used as of. So the reactions of the multilateral organizations and of the international press have been divided, or have divided, entre, between, once again, straight from the word list, uninformed, apresuradas, which I think just means pressured. Let's see, I don't really know that, to be honest. It seems like pressured. Hurried, hasty, y parciales, and partial, like biased. So let's see that whole sentence now. With rare exceptions, the reactions of the multilateral organizations and of the international press has been divided between uninformed, pressured, or hurried, and biased. All the prepositions so far in this paragraph are being used exactly how the word list says. Esta desorientación colectiva se puede atribuir. This disorientation, this collective disorientation, can be attributed a la elevada complejidad jurídico-institucional, to the elevated complexity, to the elevated jurisdictional institutional complexity. So as being used as to the elevated, del sistema política brasilero, of the system of the Brazilian political system. Okay, we're gonna get context. We're gonna start over because I'm lost right now. Al Estado, but del is just being used as of the system. Al Estado, to the state, de permanente asombro, of permanent darkness, con la acumulación, with the accumulation, de escándalos destapados, of scandals. Destapados is like uncorked, like with no tap on it, basically untapped. So never-ending scandals. Por is definitely going to get read here. Los jueces, and that just means, I guess the scandals are by the judges. Por los jueces, by the judges, of la operación Lavajato, and that's just a name of some operation. I don't exactly understand because it's capital letters, so you know it's a name. O incluso a la barrera lingüística, or including to, I think that means to, we'll come back to it, the linguistic barrier que el idioma Cervantino impone, that the language Cervantino comes from Cervantes, so Spanish language, el idioma Cervantino is Spanish language, impone, imposes, a un entendimiento, to an understanding, más profundo, more profound, so a more profound understanding, de los hechos, of the facts. En especial, now en especial just means especially, but I guess we'll mark that as, you would have figured it out from context, I think, but we'll mark it as read because I didn't. That's a phrase you're gonna have to memorize. You're not gonna get that straight from the word list, but I think context will tell you, but we'll be conservative here. A los países hermanos en la región. To the countries, brothers, to the brother countries in the region. So let's go through the whole paragraph now. In recent days, the mediums of global communication have focused on the political culmination of the impeachment process of President Dilma Rousseff. With rare exceptions, the reactions of the multilateral organizations and of the international press has been divided between uninformed, hasty or rushed, and biased. This collective disorientation can be attributed to the elevated jurisdictional institutional complexity of the Brazilian political system, to the state of permanent darkness with the accumulation of unending scandals by the judges of Operation Lava Jato, or even to the linguistic barrier that the Spanish language imposes to a more profound understanding of the facts, especially to the brother countries in the region. So all those yellow prepositions were used as the textbook definitions there. Moving on to the second paragraph now. El primer equivoco tiene que ver con the first mistake. Okay, this is an interesting one here. Tiene comes from tener, and tener means to have. So he has is el tiene. But when tiene is next to que, it means to have to, like to have to do something. So he has to would be el tiene que. But when tiene que is next to bear, like it is right here, it means to have to do, like to be related to, and that's usually followed by con. So tiene que ver con is to have to do with. The first mistake has to do with la interpretación, the interpretation, de que el impedimento de la presidenta constituye un golpe contra la voluntad popular. Now, I read more than I normally do because I needed that much to get the context. Let me look at this again. Interpretation of which the impeachment, we're going to go with impeachment for that, the impeachment of the president constitutes a coup. Golpe is coup. It means hit, but they use it for political coup. Contra is against the popular will. Okay, so the first mistake has to do with the interpretation. Okay, here's what's going on. This author is basically saying there are some people out there that are interpreting the impeachment of the president as a coup against the popular will. And I guess the sentence ends here. So, expresada is expressed en las urnas. En las urnas is in the ballot box. Urnas is in the ballot box. In the ballot box, el 26, the 26th de octubre, of October, de 2014, of 2014. So he's saying there are people out there that are saying the impeachment of the president is a coup against the popular will because Dilma, the president, was actually reelected. I believe this is her second term on October 26, 2014, so not very long ago. So he's saying the first mistake has to do with that interpretation. This just means that the impeachment of the president constitutes a coup against the popular will expressed in or at the ballot boxes of the 26th of October of 2014. So this decade here is a little weird because that just means, it means of which or something like that. But really in English, we would just say the interpretation that the impeachment of the president constituted a goal. You know, it has to do with the interpretation that I would say that in English, I think. De que is that, basically. The first mistake has to do with the interpretation that the impeachment of the president constitutes a coup against the popular will of the people expressed at the ballot boxes October 26, 2014. So first thing is, de que here means that in English, really. But in Spanish, if you said of that, you really probably would have understood it. But let's make that red. Just in case. Let's be conservative here. Of the president constitutes a goal against the popular will expressed en las urnas, in the ballot boxes, and I told you that in is on, at, whatever, de octubre. Now, this of October of 2014, these count. These are yellow. These are not going red. Because is this what we would say in English? No, but it's very easy to figure out what's going on. The 26th of October of 2014. We just say the ballot box is October 26th, 2014. Just a different way of building a sentence. Moving on here. Desde junio de 2013, from June of 2013, and that's straight from the word list. Desde is of or from, desde is since or from, de is of or from, 2013. El gobierno, and gobierno with a capital G usually means the administration, this president, basically the president is what it's saying. El gobierno viene enfrentado reiteradas. The government comes faced with or confronted with repeated confrontations, comes repeatedly under confrontation, y multitudinarias manifestaciones, and multitudes of manifestations. That means a lot of people, I think. Manifestations is protests. Ciudadanas movilizadas a través de las redes sociales. So from June of 2013, the government was repeatedly confronted, and mass demonstrations or mass protests, massed civilian protests, mobilized through, a través de is through, per the word list, the social networks. Redes is a weird word. It was really weird for me at first, and it's still kind of weird. Redes is just, red is network, redes is networks, so social networks. So a good way, you understand what's going on. They were repeatedly confronted by people, there were mass manifestations by civilians, and they were mobilized through the social networks. Say that in English however you want. But I think that all these prepositions so far are being used exactly how the word list says. Las protestas no han cesado ni aún después de su reelección. The protests didn't cease. The protests haven't ceased. Haven't ceased, not even since after, después de is after, it's on the word list, her reelection. So she was reelected, and han culminando, and they have culminated with la más amplia demostración política, with the biggest, the widest political demonstration. Más amplia is most amplified, so biggest, widest, de la historia del país, of the history of the country. Más de 4 millones de personas, more than 4 million people. Okay, so this is an interesting one. I'm gonna have to mark these red. I don't like it, but I'm gonna mark these red. I didn't notice this before, actually. So if you look at the video, these were marked yellow in the video, or green, or whatever I marked them. So the protests didn't cease, not even after her reelection. And they culminated with the biggest political demonstration, basically, of the history of the country. I'll leave those yellow because that is like showing possession or something like that, and that just makes sense with of. But this, more of 4 million of people, it's like this one maybe? I guess this one is yellow, this one counts. But this one not. That's just like a way they talk, I guess. Más de 4 millones. It's just like, I don't know, I'll have to look up that, exactly what's going on there. But it's not used as of or from. But I think you would get it from context. But we'll be conservatively of people, millions of people. We would say that in English, just a little awkward. Presentes, present. En más de, in more of 53 ciudades. So present in more than 53 cities. So de is actually not being used as of or from there either. I did not notice any of this stuff before. It's being used as then, but I still think you would have gotten it from context, but now I'm not so sure because I've been doing this for so long that I've learned to talk in English the way they would in Spanish, basically. So the way I understand this stuff, maybe I'm just used to it. So please give me your feedback. Email me at support@gringoespanol.com and tell me, like, where I'm making these des red, where I really originally had them as yellow or green in the video. I didn't notice that they are being translated as different things. More than 4 people, more than 4 million people, present in more than 53 ciudades. So I guess for just numbers, I guess that's it's translated as then. El pasado 13 de marzo último, the past 13 of the last March, so this past March 13th. Continuing on, la popularidad de la presidenta, the popularity of the president, sigue por debajo de los 2 dígitos. So por is going to get marked as red, but now this is a similar situation that we saw before with por encima de. The popularity of the president continues or follows below. This is basically meaning below. In the video and on the word list, I told you debajo de means under. Well, now, por debajo de is just a way to say below. It's the same sentiment. So continues below 2 digits. So she's in single digits in her popularity rating. So por, just like in por encima de, I think if por wasn't there or you didn't understand it, you would have still gotten the picture from the context. But por debajo de means below, just like por encima de means above, and debajo de means under, just like encima de means on top of. So the 2 digits. Desde el inicio de 2015. So from or since the beginning, the beginning of 2015. Las encuestas, the polls, I learned that in the last video. Previas a is going to get red because that's not on the list. It's pretty simple and probably pretty common. It just didn't make the list. Previas a is prior to la sesión legislativa, the legislative session, en la que se autorizó el impedimento. We're going to stop there. Previous to this legislative session, in that, and they're talking about in which the impeachment was authorized. That's what's going on. So the polls prior to the legislative session in which the impeachment was authorized. So this basically means in which, and this was authorized. I think it's the passive voice in the preterite tense. So, and in which it was authorized, the impeachment mostraban showed que más del 68%, that more than 68% de los encuestados of the polled, of the people questioned, estaban en su favor, were in her favor, his favor, or its favor, but we're talking about the impeachment here. So in the impeachment's favor, not in Dilma's favor. So the polls prior to the legislative session in which the impeachment was authorized showed that more than 68% of, so again, del is actually being used as then there. So it's numbers. More than 68% of the polled were in its favor. Independently de la métrica, of the metric, que se adopte, that is adopted, no estamos frente a is one that's not on the list, but it's also very common. It means facing or facing. No estamos frente a un país dividido, a country divided. So, independently or regardless of the metric that's adopted, we are not facing a divided country. Las encuestas, the polls, muestran, show que la amplia mayoría, that the wide or amplified majority, the wide majority, de los brasileros, of the Brazilians, exige, that means to demand, no solamente un cambio de rumbo, not only a change of rumbo, which is like path or rhythm, pero un nuevo gobierno, but a new government. So the polls show that the wide majority of the Brazilians demand not only a change of direction, but a new government. So that's it. I think you guys get the picture here. All these yellow marks, the prepositions were definitely used exactly how the word list says and exactly how we use them in English. The red marks, some of them are poor, okay? And we're going to talk about that next video. A couple of them are previas a and frente a, and those are just additional prepositions that didn't make the list of 22 prepositions, but they are very common and they're worth learning for sure and to know. But then a lot of these de, like de 4 millones, de 53 ciudades, del 68, all those translated as then. So it's not exactly, now, you know what, if I had to do it over again, I probably would have made de, of, from, or then, but like I said, I didn't teach the test. So who knows what this is? It's still probably 80%. I'm really curious if those examples that I turned red that I didn't know were red, you would have understood without me telling you. So email me at support@gringoespanol.com and tell me the answer. That way I can make better videos for you in the future. Hasta luego.